But I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Chandler Jordan. I'm the program director of SC Economics. I came out of the classroom where I taught for 7 years, both economics and personal finance. I've been on board with SC Economics for 2 years, where I have served in the role to simply be your support. And so I want you guys to take away from tonight that not only do I have my friends David and Tim with you to show you awesome resources and support, but also that me at SC Economics is here to support you as you teach economics and personal finance to your students. That being said, I am going to turn it over to the lovely David and Tim and let them tell you about Budget Challenge.
All right.
Yes. I haven't been called lovely in a long time. Wait, I've been called a lot of things, but not lovely.
Let's see here. I'm going to do this screen share thing. Go technology. Slideshow. All right. I think that's what I need here. Okay. Well, I heard a rumor that this event was saving the best for last. So it's just a rumor I heard. Well, hello, everyone. My name is David Buten. I am the inventor of Budget Challenge. And along with my wife, we are the co-founders and co-CEOs of Budget Challenge. I started building Budget Challenge about 13 years ago, right here in this basement, kind of by myself at the beginning. I always believed this to be the best idea ever to hit the personal finance education scene, and I still do. But there's been one thing that has been unexpectedly difficult to do. Harder than getting an idea patented, developing our own technology, and starting a company without debt. It's explaining what Budget Challenge is. And the best I can do to explain this, my theory is that there's been very little innovation in this space. So when people aren't looking for things new, they're not used to seeing things that are new. We're talking about what we do. It sort of gets mapped into what people already know in their head. So what I want to do with that in mind is to start this presentation by not telling you what Budget Challenge is, but rather how we are different. Okay, here we go. So teaching personal finance without Budget Challenge is like trying to teach driving without a car. So what do I mean by this? Okay, try to imagine how engaged and dialed in student drivers are when they're preparing for a written driving test. Now compare that to how engaged and dialed in they are when it's time for the actual driving test. It's literally a night and day difference. A difference like this. Both of these pictures show a flight simulation in progress. One of them probably looks more fun. The other is an industry standard for training capable pilots. But what if I told you that the technology in Budget Challenge is like bringing a flight simulator to your classroom? Well, it is. And we have a nice demo to show you in just a few minutes. While living in a pandemic isn't easy, we've had at least the good fortune of winning the 2020 EIFEL Award for Program of the Year. Our 10-week simulation is obviously the star of the show, but we have full curriculum, multi-modal assessments, and parent engagement tools. And we've been operating at scale for many years. Our results are great, but something I didn't expect is how it is impacting schools. This here is a story from one of our teachers. And I honestly hate it when people read to me, so I'm just going to read it quietly, and you can read it quietly just for a few moments. All right, everybody up with this thing. The experience in Budget Challenge is so engaging and impactful for students that the conversations about personal finance spill out of the classroom into the halls and cafeteria, but it doesn't stop there. Students, often to the surprise of their parents, are the ones initiating conversations about money at home. Our parent engagement tools and parent surveys are free to teachers at no added cost. Did I say cost? I'm sorry. There's some bad news here. let's get the groans out of the way early. We are not a free program. Normally we wait till the end of the presentation to say that, like it's a good thing to end on a bad note or something, I don't know. But we do have good news. We can help. More than half of the schools that have contacted us have funding issues, and we're getting quite good at working with teachers and administrator to not only identify all the funding available, but assist with sponsorships, and we even have some of our own grants. So if you are interested in exploring the funding ideas that we have and our help, please just in the chat, put your email address and funding help, and I'll take note of that and we will reach out to you. It just doesn't work out well talking about individual funding situations on a group call like this. So we'll take them offline. If you're interested, we'll definitely follow up with you. Also, I'm about to hand it over to Tim, but also, if you have questions, I'm going to be monitoring those for at the end. We'll do a Q&A. So if you have questions at any time, just type them in the chat and we can deal with those at the end. And let me introduce Tim Lambrecht. He's been teaching for well over 24 years, but 24 of those years have been with financial literacy. And he's used Budget Challenge quite a bit with over 400 students. He's had a lot of top finishers and even some scholarship winners when scholarships were a thing. He's got tons of teaching awards, and he's an accomplished curriculum and assessment writer. There's actually 2 more pages of this, but I'm going to stop there because we got not a lot of time, and he's just an all-around good dude. So Tim, it's yours.
Thanks, Dave. You know, that's funny. He's taught 24. He's taught 24. He's taught much longer than that, but 24 of them have been financial literacy. And you know, Dave is right. To give you an idea, I actually used a manual mimeograph machine in my first teaching job. So, you know, and some of you are like, what's that? It's kind of like 8-track tapes for photocopying. But anyway, first of all, you know, I want to thank you all for being here. I'm guessing that for a lot of you, this is like hour 14 going on for your day. And I know as a teacher, we're just used to this. You know, that's kind of what we do. But I still really value your time and you know, Dave kind of threw down the gauntlet there by saying that this is a pretty amazing thing. And I want to tell you that, you know, I thought I had created some amazing things for my kids. I thought I found some amazing things for my kids. But, you know, when I first saw Budget Challenge, I really couldn't believe it because I thought, you know, this was the type of thing that I kind of had in my head. And like, wouldn't it be great if you could do this? I just never knew that it was actually possible to do. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and share my screen with you. And what my screen actually is a teacher account. It's a live teacher account. It's an account right now of a teacher who has classes in Budget Challenge. Her name's Trisha DeBacco. She's in upstate New York. She's one of our superstars. And I picked her teacher page because she's also playing Budget Challenge as a student in something that we call teacher play. One of the tools that we have to onboard teachers is the ability to play the simulation yourself. And I strongly encourage all of you to go ahead and sign up for a free teacher account at Budget Challenge and just select teacher play. You can actually start one tomorrow. We start simulations every week. The next one starts tomorrow. Doesn't give you a lot of time to make your vendor selections, but that's okay. And Trisha is actually playing a teacher play right now, even though she's very experienced. We always encourage our teachers to do it before they have students, or some of our teachers will do it a week ahead of students. Trisha always wants to know where she's at with the students. And so she plays along. And so first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go into the student home tab. And normally if I was a student, I wouldn't see this teacher home. And I wouldn't see this learn more, and I wouldn't see this blog. That's just all part of the teacher page. But because she's playing what we call a teacher play simulation as a student, she has a student home. And this looks just like a student page, but it's a really good student because Trisha's really good at Budget Challenge. And she should be. She's played a bunch of times. Yeah, it's about time she's getting all the quiz answers right, because I think last time I looked at one of hers, she got one wrong. So what's Budget Challenge? All right, as Dave pointed out, it's a couple things, but the centerpiece of it and what makes it so different, it is a 10-week real-time, real-world financial simulation. And when I explain that to people, they can't wrap their head around it because it's like, okay, so is it like a video game? Is it kind of like a simulate? What is it? And it's really like you're in charge of the budget of an independent young adult. And for 10 weeks, you have to make all the financial decisions and take the financial actions that they would need to do to effectively manage their finances. And along with that, you need to achieve 6 key financial goals, which I'll show you a little bit later on. So the first thing that you do in the simulation is you make vendor selections. And we have a bunch of vendors because in real life, students are going to have probably a car loan. They're probably going to have a student loan. They're going to need a place to live. They're going to have a cell phone. They're going to have cable. They're going to need renter's insurance if they're renting. They're going to need a vehicle, and they probably are going to have to take out a loan for it. And so the first thing that students do is they make vendor selections. And this is the vendor selection page that the students make their selections on. Now, some of you may have played the game of life. I don't know, I can't see all of you, but wave your hands if you played the game of life. Remember where you spin the spinner? I know it's changed now, but if you played the game of life, I remember playing the game of life, and you started off and the big decision was go to college or not, but it really wasn't a decision because if you just went right to work, you didn't make very much money. And I remember the thing was like, you wanted to be the doctor, right? So you'd spin and it's like, oh, you get to be the doctor. It's like, you got this, you're probably going to win the game. And then if you spun the wheel and you were a teacher, it's like, oh man, it's like, it's going to be rough, right? Now, budget challenge isn't like that. Budget challenge, everybody has the same amount of income. Everyone has the same opportunities. It's not a game of, well, you got lucky because you shook the lucky dice, so you landed on the lucky space. You're managing money just like everyone else. But from the moment the simulation starts, everyone's path diverges because like in real life, there's an infinite number of choices that students have to make in terms of what they want to do, whether they want to set up an emergency fund or whether they want to put more money in their 401k. And that's part of what makes Budget Challenge so engaging. They also get to make a lot of choices. Now, none of these choices are do or die choices. There's not $1,000 a month cell phone bill. That wouldn't be realistic. And in fact, one of the things we pride ourselves on in Budget Challenge is that everything is realistic. There's a reason for the cost of everything. There's a reason for why the salary is what the salary is. There's a reason why the healthcare premium that the student pays is the healthcare premium that they pay, because they're all based on real numbers, and so we want this to be as authentic as possible. Once the student makes all these vendor selections, and usually teachers will take a couple class periods to talk about some of these. If it's at the beginning of the year, they might at least talk about things like what an insurance deductible is, because that's one of the things that differentiates policies. What certain terms are when it comes to banking and fees. But from that point on, now they're managing money. And so just like in real life, bills come when bills come. They don't all come at once. Bills that come once a month come on the same day every month. Bills that come once every 6 months, like say your auto insurance premium, that'll only come once during the simulation. When bills come, students will go to their account. Students pay for bills with e-checks. We do pre-populate all the vendors. That's the one thing we do that's maybe a little different than a real online banking app. But the rest of it looks very much like a real online banking app. So the student sees all their account activity. Now, in this particular simulation, they are on day 27. So they're about 2/5 of the way through the sim. And so there's been a lot of activity in the bank account. You can see when they've made payments. This particular student, Trisha, she picked the option where there's a 50-cent per check fee. She did that in order to get the account with the low minimum balance. There's entries for when a deposit is made. So here there was a security deposit, which was refunded from their previous apartment. Their paycheck, and I know it's hard for you to see my cursor, but my paycheck down here got deposited to the account. just like a real bank account, if she has linked accounts, she can transfer money to her savings account. She's got a savings account. And again, every student's account is unique because once they start making decisions, it's going to be different than everyone else's. And this is the stuff that's really hard for people to wrap their head around, because people say to us, so you mean to tell me, like, if there's 1,400 students playing at any given time, you guys are actually maintaining 1,400 different savings accounts, checking accounts, 401k accounts, payroll accounts? And the answer is yes. And that's what makes Budget Challenge so different than, static software that, well, you can either do A or B, and you can either then do C or D. Also, it's in real time. So things happen just like they happen over the course of 10 weeks in real life. The students have access to a lot of performance data. This is the student dashboard, and it tells them about a number of things that teachers can use to constantly assess them on. But then students can also use them because students are really getting immediate feedback for some things. They're getting feedback overnight on other things. Just like a real bank account, balances change every day. So student performance scores change every day during the 10 weeks of the simulation because things are going on. There's good things going on. There's bad things going on. And, they're getting credit for keeping low credit utilization if they're keeping low credit utilization. If they miss the payment, they're getting a late penalty fee on a daily basis. And all of this is reflected in their student dashboard. Students have what we call the road test, which is attempting to earn trophies for key financial behaviors. They don't earn these by answering a multiple choice question or answering a bunch of multiple choice questions. They earn these by actually acting. They earn these by demonstrating the behavior. So to earn the emergency fund trophy, they need to deposit $500 in their checking account within the first 11 days. Now that doesn't sound that hard, but they're trying to do that, but they're also knowing that they've got all these other bills that they have to pay, right? And they also know that, well, there's these other trophies that they can earn. For example, they can earn a trophy for paying down their student loan debt. They can earn a trophy for putting more money in their 401k retirement account and getting their full employer match. But obviously, if they put $500 here, they can't put $500 there, right? That's that concept of opportunity cost that, sometimes students kind of struggle with in the abstract, but when they actually have to make these decisions, it becomes very, very real to them. Now, one of the tools that we have is something called the cash flow spreadsheet. And, to flick back to that vendor page, or excuse me, not that vendor page, this vendor page, we have an instructional video on how to use that, as well as some teacher tools, because it's either a Google Sheet or Excel spreadsheet that we teach students to use to really help them understand the whole idea of cash flow. They don't have to pay every bill when it comes. And sometimes that's not a good idea because they might need that money later on, right? Or they might need to wait till they get their next paycheck to pay the bill. And Budget Challenge teaches them how to do that. There's also on this page, if you just notice, there is a video, these are short videos, 2-3 minute videos on how to complete vendor selections, especially now when a lot of teachers are teaching remote or blended, or you have some students in class and you've got a couple of them at home. All of the things that a student needs are on the site. Now, many of these things can also be downloaded. So our entire curriculum can be downloaded for your students as PDFs. So you can distribute it that way if you like. If you have students who have limited internet access, Budget Challenge will work on a cell phone. It's amazing how many of my students, when I use it, even though we had a computer lab, we weren't one-to-one, but we had a computer lab, the students would like to do Budget Challenge on their phone because students like to do everything on their phone, and they can do that. But to go back to the performance metrics, students know every day, and within the day, how they're doing and what's going on, because they have access to, the same types of information they would have if they were really managing this money. So they're going to get reminders if their bills are late, just like they do in real life. Students get a rank. Now, this is Trisha. She's number one among 40 teachers. Right now, there's 40 teachers playing in this teacher play. And if she were a normal student, she could look and see every single thing that happened that caused her score to change. You as a teacher can also see this for each of your students from your dashboard, which I'm going to show you in a minute. She can also see how she's doing on the trophies, how she's doing on saving, how she's doing on fees. Normally we want to avoid fees, and if she has any penalties. And so far, Trisha's had no penalties. One of the things we don't do in Budget Challenge, for as realistic as we are, we don't provide a credit score. And teachers have asked us, why don't you guys give a credit score? Well, because we're realistic, and a credit score really reflects behaviors over long periods of time. But what we do is we assess the same types of metrics that are used by the credit reporting agencies to create credit scores. And so, the numerical score that students have is a pretty good indicator of their skill level. That, and the fact that if they've earned trophies, and we consider earning 3 trophies pretty good score. 5 is what we would consider really proficient adult level financial literacy, because that's actually demonstrating a behavior. We all know what we're supposed to do. We all know we're supposed to have an emergency fund. We all know we're supposed to save for retirement, just like we all know we're supposed to eat 5 or 6 servings of vegetables every day, right? And we're supposed to exercise every day. We're supposed to get enough sleep every night. You guys all should be in bed by now. But we don't want to do that, right? But here, students are actually doing these things. And once they can do them here, it's much easier for them to do them in real life. I know you may have some questions on the student page, but I want to just show you the teacher page. So this is your interface as a teacher. And what you have is a dashboard for each of your classes. You may only have one class that you're teaching. Trisha has 4 classes. She's given them names: Finance Fanatics 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just at the top of this page, you can see there's an engagement score. Engagement is a metric of just what it sounds like. Are students in the simulation? Are they checking their account balances? Are they moving money, so that they don't overdraft their checking account? Are they looking at, their 401k and making sure they're making a contribution there? Because, all the research shows that people who do that in real life tend to be much better at managing their finances, right? If they're balancing their checkbook, if they're keeping up on bills, and that's what engagement shows. And she's got some incredible engagement scores. Again, she's a master using Budget Challenge. Kids get very engaged in Budget Challenge. We say engagement scores over 80% are really top tier. So, I'm showing you, I'm showing you kind of the best of the best here. But she was one of the teachers I knew would be playing the teacher play. That's why I pulled up her account. In terms of the individual classes, so I just picked Team Finance Fanatics 2. I don't know if that's her second period class. She's got 25 kids. Her dashboard shows that she's kicking butt, or they're kicking butt. One of the tools that we have, the first tool, is something we call Boost Engagement. You can look at every single student's activity log, and you can look at every student's score very easily. But we know that teachers are pressed for time, and we also know, especially now, with teachers doing blended and remote, that they need better tools, to just be more efficient. So the Boost Engagement shows us, are there any students that are just struggling, and it pulls them out, so technology does the work for you. So in this case, we've got 2 students with late payments, Michael's 1 and Jericho R14. And then it looks like we've got Jericho R14 hasn't taken any quizzes. So you guys all know what that means. Jericho R14 probably isn't in class, right? And I don't know if he's at home, because he's not in person, or if he's sick. But this is a very easy way to see, who's got issues. And normally, normally there's going to be more. But Trisha, just like I say, she's got masterful classes. It'll tell you if anybody bounced a check. It'll tell you if anybody registered late, but they haven't completed their vendor selections. And it tells you if students are over the credit limit. She doesn't have any of those students. But this is just a really powerful tool. You don't have to look through the whole roster to see if there's any issues, and what the problem is. And sometimes it's the kid doesn't know how. A kid doesn't know how to, how to write a check, or a kid, wrote a check, but they don't know what their account balance looks like. Every class has a leaderboard. You know, this is kind of the equivalent of your grade book. And so if I scroll down, we see that the top performer has got 5,908 points. Right now, they're putting 30% of their earnings in the 401k. We'll see if that's sustainable. They've got $814 in the bank, and they've earned 2.5 trophies. If I want to see what they're doing, I can just click on view, and I can see everything that they've done during the simulation. Budget challenge is like all the things in real life. You can't cram because it's in real time. You know, so you can't wait till the end of the simulation and then pay all your bills. By that time, you'll be at the bottom of the leaderboard and your friends will have figured out who you are and they'll be laughing at you, right? You know, it's kind of like being a farmer or, you know, relationships, you know, the important things in life, you know, you can't just cram. You know, if you're an athlete, you can't, well, I'll get in shape like the week before the big game. And budget challenge is like that because that's the way finance is. You know, you can't just, you know, pay attention to your money once in a while and expect that things are going to turn out okay. This is a really good class, but just to give you an idea of how things vary because of students' decisions. You know, the bottom student has 4,309 points. Now they all have the same opportunities. They all get the same amount of money. They all can choose from the same vendors. It's really just the decisions they make and their ability to manage their cash flow. I'm not ashamed to say that when I would use budget challenge, I would actually have students that would have negative points because they thought they could blow it off and they couldn't. And my classes were seniors. And so I let them be seniors. I let them blow it off and let the consequences fall. And then students would be scrambling. It's kind of like it was a really good lesson because some of these students were students who always got A's. And it's like, all right, they're doing really poorly. And these students that they thought, you know, they were smarter than are doing better than they are. Well, you know what? You know, you can't just cram with everything in life. It doesn't always work that way. We can look at engagement scores for our classes or individual students. And we can look at how we did with trophies, either by class or we can look at it. Oh, excuse me, I'm back on the student home. With what we call the road test goals. And so we can see for each of our trophies, and this one's still in process, you know, who's earned the trophy so far and how many points it's worth. And it explains, and this looks just like the student page. Now, one thing that we have for both teachers and students is something called our help desk. It's another thing that differentiates us from other programs. We have real people, Monday through Friday, 7 to 5. I can access the help desk from the teacher page, and we also have a help desk for students. So, common thing that students would ask me when I was teaching, a student would come up to me and would say, you know, Mr. Lambrecht, something's wrong with my budget challenge. I paid my cable bill, but I got a late fee and it says that I haven't paid it yet. And I'd say, okay, what do you want me to do? And well, like, you know, you gotta, you know, can you fix it? And I'm like, well, you know, I don't know. What would happen in real life if you thought you paid your cable bill and they gave you a late fee? You know, just 5 years from now, you're going to call me up and say, hey, Mr. Lambrecht, you know, I got a thing from my cable company. They said I didn't pay my bill. Kids were like, well, no, I wouldn't say that. And say, well, what would you do? Well, I guess I'd contact the cable company. It's like, okay, well, if you think you paid your cable bill in budget challenge, you know, fill out a help desk ticket and see what they say. Tell them what happens. Now, normally when that happens, it's they paid the wrong bill. You know, they thought they were paying the cable bill. They paid their cell phone bill instead. You know, that's typically the type of thing. But if they submit a ticket, probably that same day or by the next day, they will get a response. It's actually better than real customer service, and we'll look into it. And so really it changes the teacher role. You know, you'll get a lot of questions and you're just going to flip them back at students. You know, it's just teachers, you know, it's the kids that really don't want to make a mistake. Well, you know, Mr. Lambrecht, I want to put that money in the emergency fund, but I looked at my cash flow spreadsheet, and if I don't, I won't be able to, if I do that, I won't be able to pay down my credit card bill. So what should I do? It's like, what do you think you should do? What are the consequences? Because this in real life, there's not these easy answers. It sounds great, when somebody just gives you this glib advice, well, don't have any debt. Well, how do you do that, right? And so it really changes the whole teacher role. The help desk is also really handy when it comes to those tissue issues. I don't know about you, but even before Corona, I would get emails from students at like 11 o'clock at night saying, hey, can you help me with this? Or, I got a question. And a lot of those are things like, kid forgets their password. Can you get my password? No, you can submit a request to the help desk. They'll get your password, because right now, especially with all the other things we have going on, we can shift some of that burden to somebody else, and we're that somebody else in Budget Challenge. And we're happy to do that. The final thing I just want to touch on is we do have a complete curriculum. We have a curriculum, a multi-week curriculum, which has, been our curriculum, we update it every year. I, call it now our legacy curriculum, because we're replacing that with our e-textbook. This version of it is slim because we know that a lot of teachers are using it with students online. And so if they're using it on a cell phone, we don't have a lot of pictures in it. We're trying to downplay the graphics. And so, that way it's very usable. It's single column, so it scrolls on any device. But this can be used by itself or with Budget Challenge. It's really designed to work with Budget Challenge. We make a lot of references to Budget Challenge. Each chapter has content. It's the most up-to-date curriculum that exists. I say that with certainty because I've seen just about all of them. And ours is brand new. We've got assessment questions at the end, ELA connections, math app, and then we always relate it back to the simulation. This particular one happens to do with payroll deductions, because in Budget Challenge, just like in real life, there's payroll deductions. So there's a question about health insurance and 401k payroll deductions, and the students have to kind of apply their understanding here. There's also a teacher guide that has the answers, but then also some lesson suggestions. And that also includes our parent engagement messaging, which is another really helpful thing right now. We piloted it last year with a handful of teachers, and they were thrilled with the results. A couple of them used it through COVID. We didn't know COVID was coming, and it was even better. And in fact, one of the things that we found from a lot of our teachers is for those that went full remote, which was most of us in March, Budget Challenge was one of the few things that a lot of kids did. They stopped doing other things, but they still did Budget Challenge. Now that's a lot of show and tell, and I've really just kind of scratched the surface. But what I really would like you to do is I'd really like you to go to our website and sign up for a teacher play. And it costs there's no cost to sign up for a teacher account. There's no cost for a teacher play. And in fact, Dave and I were talking this afternoon, and what we're going to do is if you sign up and complete a teacher play, we will give you a whole class of Budget Challenge. So you can test drive the program with an entire class, up to 40 students. All you have to do is just try it with the teacher play. One of the things that we found is teachers who've done the teacher play, they figure it out. And because there's a steep learning curve. The first time I did Budget Challenge, there was no teacher play. And, I would have a student come in at the beginning of class. I had a class first hour, and I still remember this. And, whatever victim was waiting by my door when I came in, there's always one of those kids, there's that kid waiting by the door when you come into school. It's like, how long have you been here? And it's like, all right, I'd say, hey, come up to, because we were one-to-one. So it's like, hey, come up to my teacher station computer, like, all right, here, log into Budget Challenge, all right? Show me how you pay a bill. And, oh, wow. It's like, that's amazing, Well, now we have teacher play, because we're always making improvements. And what we found, though, because we do a lot of summer training for teachers, the big districts that adopt, and when teachers do teacher play over the summer, they're just ready to go, and their student engagement is incredibly high, and they give us, warm fuzzy letters about how wonderful things are going, because there is a lot to it. It's a very powerful simulation. It's a very realistic simulation. And with that, I'm out, and let's open to questions.
Okay. I think there's one early on there's our simulation is shorter than 10 weeks. And actually, no, it's for a good reason. There's sort of we want there to be multiple cycles of the same bill. So more than, 2 bills. If you don't pay your first bill and you don't get a second one that shows that the late fees and all the stuff that showed on the next bill, we sort of need it to be over a couple months at least. So the 10 weeks is sort of the shortest we can do it. We started out at 16 weeks actually. So it's as lean as it can get at 10 weeks. So I'm sorry about that. Tim, there's a question about grade level. I'll give my answer and you can give yours about, from a teacher perspective, but we have some 8th graders using it. We have colleges using it, and all high school grades are using it. My opinion on the sweet spot is junior, senior year in high school, but Tim, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I'll jump in on the previous question though too, Dave. I have had teachers do the sim in shorter periods. In where that seems to work is if you are in a situation where you have more time. And more time, I mean like more intensive time. So I had actually 2 teachers this summer use the program, one for 6 and one for 7 weeks. And they didn't get the full benefit in the sense that, they only got some of the bills that recurred, not all of the bills that recurred, and they had to do a little bit more to wrap up. But they still felt that it was meaningful just because they still had to figure out, this concept of cash flow, and they still had to figure out kind of the mechanics of trade-offs and things like that. But 10 weeks is better than 7 weeks. The flip side of that is I actually have a teacher that is going to run her students through it twice. She has a full year class. It's a business/financial literacy class. And she asked me if there was any value. I said, absolutely. I said, because I actually had a kind of a business extracurricular class or team that I had, it was an after school thing. And some of those kids did budget challenge, and then they did it again. And they thought that it was worthwhile to do it a second time, so more is always better. I would agree with Dave. I just talked to a teacher today who's in New York, who's in a artists and writers school, magnet school, and it's junior high. And, I think what happens with junior high is it becomes more of a game and it's still engaging and competitive. The closer they are to getting out, the more real it becomes. The kids that I had that were the most engaged weren't necessarily the kids that knew they were going to go to college and they knew they had it paid for. It was and I'm going to be blunt here because you guys are there, it was the senior girl that I had who I knew was living with a 28-year-old guy who I had 9 years earlier, and he didn't have a job and he wasn't real good with money. And she knew that she was going to be the one that was going to have to know this stuff. Or it was the kid that they don't do school, it's like they're not into jumping through hoops, but they saw the value in this because it's like, hey, this is stuff that I need to know. And so I do think, 11, 12 is the best. College is good too. We have a lot of colleges that use the program. Surprisingly, we have a lot because of where econ is required in most states is 9 or 10. We have a lot of 9th and 10th graders do it. And the teachers say it works really well. I used it with seniors, and with seniors, there wasn't anybody who wasn't engaged. The only kids that weren't engaged were kids that just missed, or they were gone or they blew it off. Because we also didn't, as seniors, I kind of let them do it on their own. We didn't spend a lot of class time with it.
Tim, I'm going to follow up on what you just said about class time. It is my understanding that you were talking about a 10-week program, but that doesn't mean that they're spending every class period on.
Thank you, Chandler. That's a great point. In fact, when teachers ask us a lot, like, well, how much time do you need to use budget challenge? And it's how much time do you want to spend on budget challenge? So a lot of math teachers use budget challenge as a supplement. They don't use the curriculum. They just do kind of a cursory, terminology, with the vendor selections. They're really concerned about the math app, about using an Excel spreadsheet, and at the same time teaching kids, financial literacy. And so then it takes as much time as it does for you to manage your money, right? You don't spend an hour every day managing your money. Your bills come in, you pay them either on, I pay mine on Saturday. Most of mine are auto pay, but so it's not necessarily that it's 10 weeks every day. On the other hand, we have teachers who they use the curriculum, they use the sim. It's pretty much their program, and you can do that too. But it's really, really very flexible. because, when Dave built it, I think he just had his idea, and I don't think he was really thinking he was building it. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were building it for a specific kind of application. But now we have CTE teachers use it. Besides financial literacy and personal finance and econ, number 2 is math. We have thousands and thousands of students who are in math classes, doing budget challenge. But then we have a lot of business students, a lot of accounting students. So.
Any other questions? Let's see. Look at the chat here. We do have coming probably in January. We'll be turning on a really cool feature for the investing side of the scene. We have already a 401k in the program, and it's just a flat dollar amount, but we're going to soon allow students to manage their 401k, not like the stock market game, which we think has maybe some misaligned incentives, but we're going to have students actually earn trophies for smart investing inside of a 401k. So it's not going to be individual stocks, it's going to be mutual funds, and it's going to be, prices update every 15 minutes, but it's going to be a really neat addition to the program that we're excited about.
Yeah, I'm old enough where I actually made my own stock market game before the stock market game. I bought the big value line binder, got the free trials, or not, $79 trial subscription that I paid for out of my own money, and ran off sheets and had kids follow it, And of course, the problem with the stock market game, it's very engaging. It's a great way to teach about, things like, price to earnings ratios and quarterly reports and how to read things like that. Even though it seems like some of those things don't matter in today's market, but it's really not what we want kids to do, right? All the financial experts say you shouldn't be buying individual stocks, right? That's not where, you don't really have the expertise. And what kids really need to know how to do is manage their 401k, because they have got to invest for retirement. They can't save enough for retirement. It's impossible. They've got to invest for retirement. And when they get their first job, that's one of the first things that they're going to do. I have 2 kids, who are in their 20-somethings, and it's like, the day you get hired, if you have a good job, right? Well, we have a 401k, there's a match, what do you want to do with your money? And most kids are not prepared to do that, because even if they play the stock market game, right? Well, they bought Google and Apple and, some penny stocks, and, try to find something that would increase in value really quickly over 10 weeks. But that's not how we're actually going to be, investing for our retirement. So yeah, the 401k improvement or enhancement is going to be pretty cool.
There's something else. We do a lot of surveying of teachers for continuous improvement. And also we also survey the students. And I guess one thing that is interesting is we're probably the only program that actually has real fees and what I call the nasty side of personal finance baked into the program. I mean, there's a lot of there's fees, but just avoid them and you'll be fine. We come at students when they make a mistake. You get a realistic fee from a bank. They sting a lot. There's overdraft fees. There's all sorts of credit card fees, just like you'd find in real life. So students, their eyes are widely opened by how this happens. And when they realize they don't have to pay a bank fee, the bank already took their money, they really understand that this happens in real life. They talk to their parents, they say, this game is fake, it doesn't work, it's not realistic. And the parents start laughing at them. Like, nope, this is the way it is. I know maybe you didn't realize this is how things work, but that stuff's baked into this program. And we follow up the students with a question, which is, how many real bank mistakes would you think that you avoided after taking Budget Challenge and making your mistakes in this simulation where it's fake money? And students on average, some are higher, say about 3 mistakes at $35. Okay, so that's about $105 on average of what students think they themselves will avoid in the future by this experience. And it costs, that's a savings that's 4 times as much as the cost of the program. So the ROI on Budget Challenge and the experience that students take away is much more than pays for itself.
Well, and Dave, then you're going to segue into kind of the last thing I wanted to show people. I thought I'd get a question on this. So I was just kind of waiting. I was going to say, as a matter of fact, I have a slide for that. So how do people pay for Budget Challenge? Because Budget Challenge, depending on your quantity, costs between $20 and $25 a student. School will pay for it out of regular budgets, and I couldn't even tell you the breakdown in terms of how people do this, but, a lot of schools pay for it out of their software and subscription budget. Because now we have an e-textbook and you can do a multi-year agreement. More and more schools, we just had one this year that bought a multi-year, and textbook funds are a possibility for that. A lot of schools are using ESSER money, the CARES Act money this year. If you have a lot of Title I students, you got a lot of CARES Act ESSER money. And so that's a potential source. Perkins Grant, if you're in a class that's a CTE kind of class, like a family and consumer science, financial literacy can qualify depending on who's teaching it. Most schools have excess Perkins dollars. Most schools have a hard time spending all their Perkins dollars unless they just have a killer CTE program. We have a lot of sponsors. We have credit unions, banks. We had a statewide sponsorship in Michigan last year. It was only for 1 year. We'd love to do a statewide sponsorship in South Carolina, probably something we should talk about because we were working on a couple others of those. In fact, we had a couple other that were kind of ready to go, and then coronavirus hit and everything stopped.
No, we just had one in Michigan.
Yep.
Statewide Michigan grant.
Michigan, every school basically could get Budget Challenge. The state paid for that one. We'll have the ability to do Donors Choose. We have had teachers use Donors Choose, but right now, in order to do it, you have to have done a Donors Choose before. By next semester, by 2021, you will be able to use Donors Choose, and it's really easy to get support from people for Budget Challenge through Donors Choose. There's actually a matching grant right now through Charles Schwab for Donors Choose for financial literacy projects. It's 50%, so immediately the cost is cut in half. We are also willing to support Donor Choose efforts. So there's because we have funders as well. So there's a lot of opportunities, and it's very rare that we just can't find a way for teachers who need Budget Challenge to get Budget Challenge. So
we have another question from Latoya. I think I understand that, but I might not be getting all of it. There's around asking whether if you have class changes amount, do you have to pay for additional ones, and can you reuse accounts? The accounts are sort of like single use. There's 10 full weeks of all the account management stuff and help desk support, and that's sort of like one student license. We have an annual subscription model where if it's a required class, we sort of take the number of graduating students, bill for that, and then you can use as much as you want. Kids can take it twice. You can use it in the summer. It's sort of unlimited at that point. So if you have it required and all kids have to have it, and kids need to retake it or whatever, we have that option as well if that's your situation.
Yeah, I think the thing that's hard for people to wrap their head around is this: it's not like software, because if you think about it, it's live. They have their own account. There's help desk people in the background. There's security that goes on. We don't do advertising. We don't do pop-ups. We don't refer kids to third-party websites. And this is something a lot of teachers are realizing is problematic right now. If you've got your kids at home and you're trying to do internet stuff, it's like, I have colleagues, it's kind of like, parents have said, hey, my kid's doing stuff, he said he's doing stuff for school, and there's a pop-up for for sports gambling. Where'd that come from? It's like, it's, none of that doesn't happen on Budget Challenge because there are no pop-ups. There's complete security. But those things, that's part of why the program costs money. Things that, and that's what I think we teach in Budget Challenge. It's like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? Google's not free. It's just you're agreeing that they're going to be able to keep all kinds of personal data on you, and that's why it's free, right? And if you're okay with that, that's okay. But it's not that it's free. You're paying for it with information. So.
All right, guys, I hate to interrupt you, but we are getting close to time. So if you still have questions, hang out. That Dave and Tim have both agreed to stay a little bit after. But if you have other obligations tonight, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for joining us for the Finance Forum. This is our last session, so yay! The first virtual forum is over. I hope it was a success. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be sending out the evaluation form for the entire forum tomorrow. So Thursday, be on the lookout from an email from me. That is the way that you'll get your incentive. And so we have your recorded participation for tonight, and then the other sessions that you were able to attend, and then you'll fill out the evaluation form. And so if you attended 2 or more sessions and fill out the evaluation form, which we will send out tomorrow, you will be eligible for that $50 incentive. If you guys have any questions, you guys know where to find me. Please email me, ask, but be on the lookout for that email tomorrow. That being said, if you have other obligations, you may go ahead and leave and dismiss. But if you have questions for either Dave or Tim, stick around. They're going to hang out with us.
Yes, and like I say, if you, and the only thing we'd ask so we know, because a lot of teachers do teacher play, and this is really only for the teachers. It's really only for you teachers. It's only for the teachers who are willing to give up their Wednesday night so they can, make the next generation of financially capable young adults more capable. But if you can just let us know somehow, you can let us know in the chat that you're going to do teacher play.
I've got a long list. There's a lot of names on the funding list.
Okay. And if you just put your name in the chat, and if we track that